Welcome to the Lean Practice Podcast. I'm Angus, joined with Aaron and Nathan, and the idea here is pretty simple. It's three of us just talking about the profession, what's working, what's not, and what's not being spoken about but probably should be. Between us, we've seen bullshit advice that's causing courage to quit the profession by the time they're 40, and we'd like to just help put an end to that. We aren't really in this to tell you what to do, how to do it, or what the best playbook is. We're here to just show you what it actually looks like to build a practice around the life that you want, rather than the one someone else drew up for you. That's really it. Let's get into it. As Nathan picked up last week, he said, well, we haven't actually defined what a lean practice is, so we should do an episode on that. So that's what we're talking about today. Before we get into it, I put out a poll last night to ask my fans, my friends, what they actually want help with. So I got a couple of good questions, a couple of random things. How do you stop Albo taking half of your income? You don't.
Move to Portugal.
Move to Portugal. Then another one. So Nathan, I think you're probably best positioned to answer a couple of these. First one. Current options of employee versus contractor positions in Gen Z staff. I feel like there's a history behind that question, but I feel like you've got enough experience to give an opinion.
What is a Gen Z staff? Just for
Z.
Z or Z. So is that like people that are like 22? I feel like such an old person right now. I'm like,
hang on, I'll look it up.
Man, even the Gen Zs are pretty old now. It's like 25,
1997
25,
to
26,
2012.
I think.
all right, cool. So essentially then, I mean, that's a long stretch, really. So the sort of people I imagine that are like new in like to practice should be sub 5 years in practice. Most of them are coming out
Under
into
30.
practice now. And so essentially what they're asking is just what's the current look of Gavitt in terms of different contracts. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. Are you seeing more employee, more contractor? What's sort of the vibe? Like in my own experience, I am a Gen Z, I suppose. The contractor positions went out of favor, out of law, I suppose, just before I started. But an employee contract made sense because it was like at least secure. But now I feel like everyone's going back to a contractor, and I reckon that's what they're asking.
Yeah. So listen, obviously there was a major change in contracting laws post the 2008 global financial crisis. Some of you may not be old enough in Gen Z to know what that is. But basically, lots of banks went bust. There's a fantastic, The Big Short, fantastic movie, explains it really, really well. Do yourself a favour. What the Australian government, in their infinite wisdom, realised is they had all these contractors working that weren't getting super, and that they were going to be held liable for that when people got to retirement age. They didn't have enough super to support themselves or potential income, and the government could no way support everyone on like the dole Medicare pension, right? They need to cut that back, which is why they also, in my theory, moved the retirement age up. So like all things, the onus was put back on business owners rather than anything else. So the contracting laws changed. It's still legal to have a contractor. There's just rules around it. Within chiropractic, you tend to see more two models now. You have a facilities lease, which is essentially a renting of the space back. It is more of a contractor type setup. It has a number of its own advantages. Obviously, again, you receive your money that is technically inclusive of what should be paid to super and tax, and then you're able to tax minimize or invest that money as you see fit. So you'll see more on the front end, but you don't necessarily have the safety yet on the back end. Employee. It's a classic employee contract. You're going to be on an hourly rate, plus super. You get some holidays in there, which is a whole new thing within chiropractic. And it has its advantages in security. I think most chiropractic graduates underappreciate how low the hourly rate is. I think most chiropractors start at a level 1.5, and the hourly rate, even as someone who's come out of 5 years, is about $34, $35 an hour, Monday to Friday, right? So you are not going to be making big money on that, but most of them also come with a percentage overlay, which is from the historical contractors. The standard within the industry has always been around 40%, and usually with a potential slide as revenue comes in up to say 50%. From a business model point of view, I've seen people looking for 60 plus. It's just, why would someone take you on? It's too high risk for too little return. But those are the two main things. The thing is, with all of these, contracts just there to know where you're all playing from. And people spend so much time on the contract, and obviously it's important. But like when you first graduate, your goal is experience generation. You should be remunerated for it. But if your whole thing is trying to get the maximum, you're often going to see less people, get less development, and therefore less money anyway, because you're not seeing people. So your goal should really be about maximizing the experience. And so, a practice where you go into where they run everything for you essentially, and you just get developed within it, they feed you, grow you, that's very fair. Or, a employee that then has a percentage on top of it. So that's probably the bigger ones. I do think the models are going to shift quite dramatically over the next 5 to 10 years. I think you'll see more salaried chiropractors. So very similar to the physio model. I think we'll see that moving in, where as a newer grad or a junior in a business, you'll start at a set amount with no percentage, you'll work full time, and then that'll graduate up. I think that'll be the most likely thing we will see coming through. Or you'll see a model where I think we haven't talked about this on camera, but talked about previously, where you'll see practices that instead of hiring a CA, they bring on an associate who basically works as an associate here and as a CA on the other time in order to integrate those costs to develop on both sides, because chiropractors have this weird idea that they shouldn't need to know what's happening at the front desk, but then the front desk gets sick or they open their own practice and they don't know what to do or how to run things. So you're actually maximizing your skills and return by spending that time as a CA rather than somehow being degraded for it. So there are a lot of things, but the crux is simply employee versus facilities. Both have huge benefits on either way, and it's more just seeing what works for the principal and works for you.
Yeah. The other way I look at it too is like it's almost a different role, which I think is sometimes when I think naturally the contractor position looks more attractive because it has a bigger potential upside. It's like, oh, I own my own thing. I think with that though, if you hire a contractor, but then they keep the expectation of being an employee, as in you bring in the new patients and you do all the marketing and everything, then I think it really goes to crap, because it's like the job's changed. It's like you bring your own income in now, you're running a business within my business, and it should change like that. So I think what's happening is a lot of Gen Z want to start their own business. Maybe they don't want to take on the full risk of going out on their own, but then that just for me means, well, what you need to do is you're operating a business inside of my business, so you need to go out and you need to act like a business. Basically, you're just leasing my space, which is exactly that lease contract. Cool. The other one, Aaron, I reckon you can probably answer this one. What does a practice system actually mean? Because we see this stuff everywhere. You got to systematize your practice, yada, yada. What does it mean? How do you actually utilize it? And to sort of on that a little, the way I look at it is a practice system is how you look after people for me. And basically it's like what I call the patient journey. Patient sees you online or wherever they first see you, all the way through to they love you or they leave you. It's like, what's that system? I feel like we see people just be like, you need to systematize your clinic and 10x it. And that's confusing. So could you give us a bit of clarity on that one? You're on mute, just by the way.
Yeah, so a system, think about it like a conveyor belt that has certain actions at certain points in that conveyor belt system. And so it starts from before the patient knows you exist, and it goes to the end of their life cycle of care, which may be multiple recalls and so on and so forth. I'll in particular address the marketing side of things. So someone doesn't know you, you need to have a predictable way of getting in front of people who do not know you, and it needs to be in a way that is energy efficient for you, and it maximizes the platform's ability to get in front of them. Okay, so that may mean a content system, which requires monthly content planning and then monthly content distribution on those platforms where your ideal patient lives. All right, and that means you need to get your message in front of them through different content strategies. The next thing, it may be a paid marketing system to then take that interest and then convert it over to a handout that says, yes, I want to engage with you because now I know, like, and trust you. And they then book. Then you've got a booking system. That booking system may require a phone call, that may require some SMSs, that may require some follow-up emails. You may have a nurture system that follows that patient so that you can build trust before that first initial engagement and when they actually do their first consult with you. And because you're going to have people who are like, yes, I want a new patient exam tomorrow, and they come in, and then the majority might be like, I want that, need it, don't trust you yet, so I need you to develop trust. So that's where the email system comes in and that follow-up system. Then of course you've got your new patient exam system, and then obviously you guys can kind of talk a little bit more about that, but you've got your conversion systems. How do we convert? What are our scripts? What are our systems from day one to day two? You've got all your follow-ups in between there, and they're systems because they're repeatable. And so it's like, if on month one you start your content system or your ads system, it's not a system until it's duplicable month on month, and then it's a system when you know that you can increase the efficiency over time of those same actions. It's not a system if it changes month on month. So people who say I have a content system and then have one big month and then they have none, the next month, that's not a system yet. That's, you did some actions and you might believe in those actions, but it's still too energy and time demanding. that you haven't been able to replicate them. And that's not a system, it's an idea. And you may like the idea, but it's not a system
Exactly,
until you're
yeah.
doing it
So
repeatedly.
basically, it's if you do the same thing, do it the same way, and that's a system. A lot of the time in business, it's just documented in a standard operating procedure, SOP.
Yeah.
What we want to go deep on today, because we've been seeing it online, is the feedback of what a lean practice actually is. I think we can own it. We've probably missed the mark in terms of defining what we're talking about. Maybe the word lean, or maybe it's because no one is lean naturally, that they don't desire it as much as they should. So we're going to spend a bit of time going through that today. So first of all, defining lean. The mindset most people seem to have around it is, Nath, you can probably add some words for me because you got sprayed on this the other day, but it's like pulling back, small-minded, it's skinny, it's all this stuff
Scarcity,
that's not
lack.
sexy.
Yeah.
Lack of
Yeah.
abundance.
So
Yeah.
that's the wrong thing. That is not lean. Lean is, we're talking ripped. When we say lean, we are the guy that you see at the beach and you're like, you get a little bit pissed off because you're like, fuck that guy. Like, look at that guy. That's what lean
Or
is.
girl.
We want, or girl. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So,
But it's just like, it is so good. Everyone wants to be lean as well. That's what we talk about when we mean lean. And a lean person could absolutely bust your ass off in a competition because they are fitter, healthier, smarter, stronger. They're just more efficient. They're not a scrawny little kid who gave up. They are the peak man, peak female. That's what we're talking about when we talk about lean. So why do you think, Nathan, it's getting misread the way we, like, what are we doing wrong? Why have we missed the mark on this one, in your opinion?
well, I think a lot of people, judging by Australia and the world's obesity crisis, a lot of people don't understand what lean is. And I think if you spent some time in training, and I think all of us having spent some time in the gym understand that lean is a hard goal for most people. Even most women, when they talk about lean, skinny actually mean lean, right? Like I remember being younger and cutting a bunch of my mate. My mum was like, "You're looking a bit skinny," and I was like, "Don't you dare! I am looking lean because lean is muscular, strong, adaptable." Scubby, which is the world's worst thing, the skinny fat, is what, most practices are skinny fat. Like they're either
bloated,
too skinny to do anything, which is what lean's being accused of, or too bloated that they're like a freight train just sort of chugging along and they can't make adaptive moves and they're just subject to like the whim of the world. Like you saw this over COVID, some of these big, 7-8 figure practices that we have all the systems, and then COVID hit and the world shifted. And that train did not arrest, and those costs went out the windows, and a bunch of people dropped their load and had a terrible time, right? So this whole idea that is a lack thing is just people trying to deal with their own securities around it, right? And so we want a lean and adaptable practice. Like all things in life, the more you can do, the more you can adapt to, the better you are. And so if your practice is lean and new things come along, you can spring into action. But by the same token, if you need to peel back from things and then go, hey, listen, I've made some choices and I need to get out of this, you don't sacrifice everything you've built for and that you're connected within your practice too, because you're too bloated to be able to make those moves.
Yeah, exactly. You said that very well. Thanks, mate. The other way I think of this, so I think, have you guys seen the video I did of the chiropractic bell curve? Where it's like, we sort of sit somewhere in there.
Yeah.
I think it's the same thing. I think just because no one talks about skinny. So obviously we all talk about the bloated, which because it's the $1 million revenue. No one talks about the guy that's seeing 10 people a week on the other end of the spectrum. That's not lean. Lean's in the middle of those two things. It's exactly like where you want to be. It's you can still lift weights and you can still go for a run and your knees don't hurt. No offense, Aaron, but that's what lean is.
I would almost argue that within the bell curve, lean can be anywhere because you can have a 7-8 figure lean practice because it means that you're holding the revenue like in the profit and you're actually getting rewarded like a good owner should. Or you can have a practice that is super hyper specific and niched. I think you talked about this the other day where someone goes and just adjusts like 20 CEOs each week, but they pay him like $200 a hit or more. And I know chiropractors as well that do this again, but does it in a lean model that maximizes the revenue out of that.
Correct. In powerlifting, there's a thing, I'm pretty sure, I'm out of the game, but they call it GL points, which is basically the smaller guys don't lift as big as the bigger guys, okay, because mass moves mass. All right, so if you're a big dude and you do 800 kg total, that's pretty good. But if you're a small guy and you do an 800 kg total, the relative strength that you have in comparison is greater. And effectively, that's what we want, is we want this relative ability to do significantly more than those who have high blimmin' revenue, but they got such low profit. So we're coming along and we're saying, look, it's better for you with whatever condition that you're in to have a higher profit margin. At a certain point, there's going to be a tipping point, but even still, you want to optimize your margin
But
as
like,
much as possible.
this is,
And there
you
appears
can
to
tell
be
the
an issue
powerlifters
with
here
that.
because yeah, we used Wilkes, but the funny thing with this is like the kickback we're getting from the community are all the classic big dogs that are like, oh, there's no weight classes in the jungle. And I was like, you know what? There is in the jungle, those stairs, and motherfucker, you are not getting up them.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. Okay. Well, in a nice little
That's
summary, then
so
I think
true.
it's been oversimplified to skinny, whereas it's not that. It's adaptable. It's highly profitable. It's the physique that we all seek. Put that on a t-shirt.
Well, I also think it's also the practice we're all chasing. It's the practice that you don't feel like you have to try and delegate your way out of. It's it's the practice that you have work-life balance because you actually love being in your practice and helping people. I mean, I'm jumping the gun here, but we've talked about this
Yeah.
off camera, on camera, at nauseum. You get all these people that tell you they love chiropractic, that they love helping people, and then you're like, so why is the only actions I ever see from you trying not to adjust people and work in your practice?
Yep.
Like, how is that integrous or connected to what you say you want to do?
Yeah. Yeah. Literally, like the amount of, well, they probably are Gen Zers. If they're not Gen Zers, they're maybe 5 years older than whatever that is. What is that one? Hang on.
Yeah, so
Millennials.
I mean, we're
millennials.
Well, actually,
so like
yeah,
Aaron, I believe we are in the world's greatest generation. The analog to digital combines out here.
I'm with you.
As someone who was born in 1986,
millennials. So I would say the younger level of millennials, this is a huge trend. Like they're all trying to get out, and they're like 31. It's like what's going on? Which we touched on last week with those guys that you've spoken to, or had the pleasure of talking to, Nath, they're literally dying at the table. Like they just love it. And we really think the key difference between what they did and what we're getting now is what we will touch on it, which is the wedge, where the wedge is the difference between like the expense and the revenue. The wedge is where your profit exists. And for those guys, I don't think they had to be, and I don't mean to belittle it, but it's like they don't have to be as conscious of being lean because life wasn't, like it is right now or what it has grown into. So these guys, they naturally were lean. That's why it worked so well. They could just do all these things because it worked. They had this big wedge. Whereas now we actually consciously have to watch what we eat. Otherwise, we get overweight. There's just so many things that add up. Your coach tells you to get 5 AI tools because there's one writes better, one does this better, one does this better, and one will clean your cat. It's like, you don't have a cat. You don't need the AI, but we keep adding, right? And that's what we're trying to say. It's like, look, the reason you're probably trying to get out so much and the reason it's so hard is because you aren't enjoying what you're doing because there is no wedge. You're not getting time to think about what you want to do. You're just working. And the only solve you seem to be able to make, and what we're seeing with the younger owners is, well, how do I get out of this? That's it. That seems to be the only thing.
And like the lean practice is not the GLP-1 of, chiropractic, right? Like, because we want to hold the muscle mass out here. Like, it's not about dropping the weight. You want to hold the strength. And so again, it's just a completely different way of looking at lifestyle and realistically fun. Because my God, lean practice is fun.
Yeah. Well, to go away from the powerlifting nerds, like another analogy that you could use here is when I was in high school, I had two mates who had jet skis. One was like a $20,000 jet ski. It was the biggest, supercharged, fastest one you could have. The other one was like $3,000 or $4,000. It was the lightest one you could have. And the power to weight ratio difference between those two things, the light one kicked its ass. Like it was so much fun. You could jump over waves. You didn't have to worry about anything breaking. You didn't have to warm it up. You just got in, enjoyed it, packed it up, got it out next weekend. So jet skis. Power to weight ratio.
And as we know, your money may not be able to buy happiness, but I've never seen a sad person on a jet ski.
Exactly. Especially if it's someone else's.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So moving it into the wedge. So I did just touch on what that is. I'll just cover it again. So the wedge is the difference between how much it costs to deliver a service and how much you charge for it. The reason we call it a wedge is because over time, we want it to increase. So if you put a point in right now, when you start to lean out, you get fitter, your power to weight ratio improves, your GLP-1, whatever you guys said, improves. We want to see a bigger gap. So that's what creates the wedge over time. And naturally, things are going to go up. Inflation exists. You're going to have to buy something. Something will break. Like that happens. But the idea of the wedge is where your lifestyle lives. Basically, that's where your happiness, not happiness, but it's like, that's what we're trying to grow with a business here. What we're noticing instead is it's more like a parallel line where whenever revenue increases, expenses increase. And so the difference between 100 visits and 200 visits is just you being 100 visits more stressed out. That's about it, you know, and same on your team and all of those things. So when we're delivering the wedge and we're trying to increase the gap, realistically, because I do get asked this, what are the expectations in the wedge in terms of percentage, like profit percentages that we would expect to see? I'm not sure who wants to take that one, but I think honestly, we're still defining that because it is, you know, it's a new concept. I've got a decent idea, but I'd see what one of you guys thinks about it. I'll let you go, Aaron. If you've got...
I'll go on the top line, and Aaron. So I think for a owner operator practice, you know, with a reasonable setup, and this is pre-tax, of course, right? Like the tax man's a whole different game, but you also pay less tax when you don't have a bunch of staff. But I still think realistically, from cost to service delivery on a pre-tax, 70% plus is very achievable in a busy solo operated chiropractic practice, right? I think that's very tangible. Like I know we had someone inquire and they're like, oh, I'm making great money. And you're like, sweet, what's your owner operator? And they had a 50% margin. I'm like, how much money are you spending to get they were spending what would have been in excess of $100,000 on unknown things that probably shouldn't have been. In an associate-led practice, and this is to give people an idea of like how much that changes, you're probably going to be around 25 to 30%. And if the P&Ls that I've seen, most people in a lot of associate-led practices are single figure to like 10 to 12%.
Yeah, and if I can put an emotion on that of what it feels like too, I'd say 5%. 5% you feel like you're not paying yourself. That's kind of it. At 10, you are, it feels neutral, right? Like it's like, I'm not seeing heaps, the odd thing breaks. That's life. Then I would say when you get to 15, you can breathe again. You're starting to like save a little bit. And then at 20, you feel like you're crushing it. You know, I've seen one practice at 20 with a really good revenue as well. Probably, what would it be? Between 1 and 2, probably 1.5 to 2, with a 20% margin, which carried 8 other practices, you know, in that group. So getting to that 20% on a high revenue model, which is a high volume model, typically is better. But the reason, feels like it's around that 20% mark is the goal. But the difference is it's a high revenue, right? And so you've also got team that are helping you to get that high revenue. As you've said in the past, Nate, like the reason you hire someone is to actually do more. So it's like, okay, well, if I hire a CA, I'll be able to do 6 appointments rather than 4. That's the point of that. As you said, on the other end of the spectrum, then it's like, how are you spending 50% of the stuff? It's just you in a room. And in that instance, a lot of the time you're just funneling crap through the business because you don't have any business sense. Like, to put it bluntly, you're just wasting money. So the first step there is going, okay, well, the goal is 80%. It is achievable. What am I doing and what am I spending all my money on? And usually you're just honestly just pissing money out the door with dumb stuff. Like you're just buying dumb stuff all the time. And that would make the difference to cut a lot of that stuff back. Get the subscriptions is another big one for those guys. And then, just like keep it operating at a lean model. So the thing I think that also going back to like the negative connotations of the lean model is, well, if you're working on your own, so within the lean model, you're that sole operator. The question I get asked a lot, or the rebuttal I get is like, well, how do you take holidays? Like, how do you get a break when you're operating on your own like that? Honestly, I think it's just a different mindset. And Nathan, like, I'd obviously love to hear your thoughts on this too, but it's like, for me, when you're operating on your own like that, I went to the hairdresser this morning. Unfortunately, so there's 2 of them. One of the lady's dad died this morning. sucks, obviously. Go in there. The other one who usually is cutting my hair, she's like on the phone, as we all have, hey, sorry, this has happened, moving patients around, all that sort of stuff. I feel like when you're operating and you're a sole operator and you're just committed to all of your patients, they're way more understanding of that sort of stuff. So you can just take 4 weeks off and they're kind of happy for you to take the time off, right? Whereas at the moment, I feel those guys that are more bloated, they're rushed, they're chasing more. If they take 2 weeks off, they lose half their book, and it's like, that is not a lean practice. That is like, I don't know what that is. That's transactional.
Unstable. Yeah.
Yeah. To its finest. So Nath, like in your experience, because it is the biggest problem. People are like, okay, if I lean out, what do I do? How do I take a break? What happens if something happens to me? And I mean, you've had that experience. So
yeah. It's actually, and I have to admit, this has come from a lot of hard learning and not taking a lot of holidays. Like I prided myself on holiday limitation and working public holidays, but I'll admit it was largely from a love of doing it rather than a lack of like wanting to. But it's actually much simpler than people think. So say you've got a lean model and you're working and you want to take some time off, you have multiple options. Option one is just simply you have such a good relationship, hey, we're going to be closed for a few weeks. And then usually I recommend to people they go midweek to midweek. So you leave halfway through 1 week and come back halfway through the other week, because then it actually is perceived as less time. So if I worked Monday, Tuesday in my practice, went from Wednesday to Wednesday, and then the second week I was there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, again, this is assuming I was working 5 or 6 day a week. Patients don't actually feel like you left because you went for 1 week, but you were still working in both weeks. So you time manipulate it to make it feel like you never left. You just move people around. Number two, you get a locum. You have someone you trust that's a friend or a colleague, and they cover you and you cover them. Like, it's not that hard. It costs a bit more, but it holds, like, you may not take that much money from the practice, but your people will be looked after, which is the number one thing, and things will be covered. And so it doesn't maximize the effect. And if you've built a patient base where you truly care about them and their care, and you have instilled that as the primary benefit, people will see the other person. If you've made it all about you and you're the magical wizard hands and everything you post is about how you're the best chiropractor in the world, you've trained people that no one else can do what you can do. And hot take, you are not that good. Well, like, we're all not that good, right? Like, it's chiropractic is a profession where everyone's mum told them they were special. But the simple truth here is, like, your people will see other people. Like, one of the really important things, again, this goes back to the old school. I remember you used to see posts and be like, hey, we've decided to shut the practice over Christmas, New Year's. We're going to take 2 weeks off. Can I find out who's going to be open so I can recommend my patients see someone while I'm away? Because it's also incongruent as a practitioner to tell someone they need to come twice a week and then be like, but we're going to shut for 2 weeks. So then when we get back, we'll start that. It's like, no. You either have to have someone in your practice, or you have to be like, hey, I'm going to send you to see Angus. He will look after you when I'm away. And then when I'm back, we can continue. And then people have always argued, oh, what if they stay with them? Well, if they stay with them, it's better for them. Like, if you're delivering such a good service, they'll come back. But if they don't, it's just a good learning. But you're not costing yourself anything because that person wasn't going to stay anyway. So I think locums are easy, time setup's easy, or you just like, listen, I'm going to be away for a few weeks. You have built things up. You have a long, stable base that'll be there when you get back. You have a brief boost when you first come back because everyone's been waiting to see you. And then you have a little bit of a drop off, but you already have the systems and recalls set up that it'll quickly build back up within a couple of weeks and you rock and roll. And just like as an owner you would with forecasting leave for an employee, you build up extra to forecast your own leave and cover it. Whereas most businesses don't have any margin, so that when they take time off, the practice absolutely cannons and suddenly they can't pay themselves. Not only are they spending money, they're not getting any like return when they get back because they've got to pay all these bills that were still there, but they have put nothing aside. These are the same people who don't put enough money aside for tax or anything like that. And it's just, again, it's a bloated model trying to support things that aren't feasible.
Yeah. And I don't know how many, it's almost like a marketing angle for some coaches where it's like, if you take a holiday, it actually costs you twice as much because you miss out on all, and it's like, oh my God, like far out. So yeah, that is a good point. And that's it. It's like, I don't know why we're afraid of sending patients to someone else. Like, I don't think competition within chiro is really that necessary. Talk about scarcity mindset. That's a scarcity mindset.
You believe that them going elsewhere, you're going to lose everyone. Well, then you need to relook at how you're doing things.
Yeah.
Because if you were delivering good things, that wouldn't be a problem. And like, listen, I will just touch on that marketing angle. Like, I agree. And I have to train my associates. Like, listen, if you take time off, it will slow things down, right? It's just, it's the nature of a human business. You will not get, like, listen, employees, you will still get some money, but yeah, you will be a bit slow when you get back, but it is just a reality of practice. But what practice does deliver is a very high remunerated job with a huge lifestyle component if you're doing it right. And so if you're doing it right, that wouldn't be an issue or a concern. But if you're doing practice in a thing where you are a passenger, you're passive, and you're not taking care of it, then, well, of course, you're going to have those issues.
And again, sidetracking, when we're saying, I think another thing, the abundance mindset, sorry, scarcity mindset. When someone says, oh, yeah, you guys are lean, it's like, that doesn't mean you work hard, you don't work hard. I really feel like that's been missed. When we say lifestyle and we mean lean, we mean you love what you do, that you do it for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you want to talk about working hard, because I think someone said something to you on the post, or I don't know who it was, but anyway, they pretty much implied it's like, oh, you gave up, you don't want to work hard. I can guarantee you, a lean practice owner, which we'll get to who they are as a person in a moment, they will outwork anyone in any model because they love what they do. It's almost unfair. Like if someone wanted to come and compete with me on what I'm doing right now, they will lose. I can guarantee you that without a doubt. Not because I'm better than them, because I love this so much. I don't need to manufacture energy to do it. I just wake up and I do it. It's fun. That's what a lean practice is for me. It's you going in and turning on the dubstep and just loving it. That's what it is. And Patience loving it too. Is that dubstep?
Right. It's whatever I want it to be. The Cragger remix of Hey, Mr. Postman. That's what that was. Just getting that vibe going.
Yeah, and I think just to this is like there's status that's involved in the numbers, right? Like it's very easy to put on the rose tinted glasses and start to play with hypothetical numbers that if I get X amount of new patients, then I'm going to be seeing seven figures and above. And then the reality kicks in. It's like as soon as you start making more, you're seeing more, and then stress comes in. And then those who wanted the optimized lifestyle, which is why they typically got the practice, they start to weigh up stress and energy to delivery, and I think at that point you start to you start to have like an internal physiological debate, like do I actually want this? And I feel like if people just decided beforehand, and maybe you got to taste it a little bit before you really truly make a decision on it, but it's like what do I actually want? Because speaking from experience, if you are trying to build something that's $1 million and above and you're getting 100,000, it feels so much better when you're just making 120,000 and taking home 100. Seven figures and 100,000 feels terrible. It feels terrible because there's so much effort that goes involved that's involved with it. There's so much training that's involved with it. There's hiring that's involved with it. And I hate all of that stuff. So that's one thing. But then you're responsible for feeding all of those people. Like if they don't get paid, then you're the problem. And there's this stress, there's this weight that you carry with all of that. And so for someone who's like, I actually just want more of a lifestyle where I can go home, hang out with my family, like, there's nothing wrong with that. And so if you want to take your six figures, multi six figures, and pay your fair share in tax and walk away, awesome. Good job. Well done. That's great. Many people can't do that. Many people slave away in a 40, 50-hour job for less than 100,000. If you can do that in 25 hours, friggin' all power to you. Well done. The thing is that you're not defining what you want beforehand. The coaches define it for you. They say that you need a seven-figure practice, a $1 million or a $2 million practice. And then they say in order to do that, you need to scale and you need to hire all of these things. And most of the people that we have worked with in the past have walked out and said, I've made more with less stuff. I have a multi, high six figure, maybe low seven figure practice, and I made more when I was by myself. And they're not asking the question, how do I scale? They're asking the question, how do I make it so that my lifestyle is more integrated, that I'm actually more connected with my family instead of away from my family, and I'm not rushing off to all of these different meetings and stuff for a practice that I once loved and now it stresses the heck out of me. So, and like to crap all over that as a coach because like you don't have what it takes or you don't have certainty or you like man, people have different reasons for operating in different ways. Like not everybody has to be a scale bro or a scale maxer. It's just you don't have to wake up at 5 a.m. and have your face ice bath and all that kind of stuff to be happy. So I'd rather people just go, I want this, and here's how I'm going to get it. And $100,000 with paying just a little bit on the top, like 80%, 70% profit. Great
I think
job. Well done.
there's a really important point
Most
here.
people can't do that.
I know the figures you're using are like, but they make a really valid point. I know, having worked with a lot of other operators where we've really helped redevelop their model, most of them are turning over solo 400 plus a week. I mean, not a week, a year, and taking home, like 250. Like they're taking like a large majorities up, right? Like this is after tax, like 250s. Whereas, yeah, like the 7-figure specialists, which I happen to see some of their books as well, where they're turning over, 1.5s, 2s, and they're taking home less than the other crew. And so again, it doesn't mean you can't do both. I do think there is, like, if you lean and then scale, I think you could absolutely still have more of what's currently going on. And this is why I think it doesn't avoid the current crew that are pushing. They could just do it better to take more. And like, if you want to be one of these scale maxes and those things, but most of the scale maxes are in industries that are like content creation and all those sort of things where you could max. Whereas every additional, like, because you can only see so many people, every additional hire and thing comes with it a cost. And so you've got to try and outstrip that. And I would say the current sort of model needs probably a 400 visit average like week across a practice to actually start breaking the wedge a little bit to happen. And so there's not as many practices these days that are seeing that volume. And so that's why people are feeling, like you said, they're languishing, that they're in that less than 10%, but they're like, well, there was enough money left over to pay myself what I wanted this week. Not I should get paid because I did the work. Usually you did the majority of the work. It's, there's enough left over to pay me. And that is scarcity. That is the fastest way to like not enjoy practice, to want to get out. And that's what we need to stop.
Yeah. So just to flip this again, because I was talking more about, those who didn't buy into the scale maxing before. So those who do, and they do want to scale, if the first thing that's told to you is to outsource your marketing and go on towards a paid marketing route, you better have 20 to 30% profit margins. Because I saw 2 chiropractic coaches this week talk about chiropractors are just not spending enough on marketing. 2 very well known ones. Well, they don't have the margin to do it. That's the problem. And so there's a point where it's an investment. Yep, it's an investment. There's a point where it feels like it's the death of you. If you don't have the margin, but you need the new patients, spending to acquire those new patients, no matter how mathematical it is, feels like death, right? And regardless of the math. And so I think if you want to go down the route of scaling, you have to have the wedge, right? You have to have the wedge. And then it is going to be volume that creates the wedge. But in order to play that game, you need to be so dialed into your numbers that you know exactly what you're dealing with. And again, a lot of the people who are bloated are already unaware of those numbers. And so when the advice is spend more on marketing, you don't know how much you have sitting in the bank. You don't know what your single visit margin is. You don't know how much you take per patient. And so you spending more arbitrarily, it's really bad advice. So create like a lean practice at scale is over 20%. Make sure you're paying yourself. Make sure that your investment to scale does not come out of your pay packet. It's not coming out of your pocket. It's coming out of the profit of the business, so that it's investment back into the business, not out of your take home. So then you don't get highly emotional about it.
Yeah, great point. And again, it's like if most of these people are at 5%, and then it's like you should be investing 10% of revenue or something is usually what they're throwing out there. They don't have 10%. It's, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
They're literally,
No.
and being the guy on the sales calls who are turning people away, it's like, you are going to have to decrease your income to pay me. So something else needs to give.
Yes.
That doesn't make sense. And then talk about the double blow. A lot of this is going to associate, which the numbers then get 40% worse. So yeah, great point, Aaron, because my next question for you was not the lean practice model, but something you said before about a disconnected, it's the owner. It's like, what does an owner present to you like who actually has a model, a leaner model, they understand it. You sort of touched on like that they're a bit more chill, they know what they want, they're intentionally making decisions rather than reacting. What is that owner who is more connected with their practice, they know what's going on, when they do present to you on a call, what's the difference? What do you see?
Yeah, cool. I'll use an analogy. a health analogy. Someone who's connected to their health knows how much energy is going into their body, knows how much energy is being expended by their body, right? So they will look at calories in versus calories out, and they will generally have an idea of what their calorie expenditure is relative to their intake. Okay, that's someone who is healthy. They know what their weights are week on week, and they track their weights and they track their cardio output, and they know maybe step counts per day. So they have running numbers. That's someone who's connected, right? Someone who is disconnected to their health has no freaking clue. They have no clue. So someone who's connected, they can go and afford the Kit Kat because they know. They can go have the Snickers bar. They can go have the pie, right? They might not have 5 of those pies a week. Someone who's disconnected, they don't have a clue. So there's no running numbers, no running tallies. They don't know, and so they eat whatever comes their way, and they don't move as much as they think that they do, and therefore you get the shift, the imbalance. So that same principle is happening with chiropractic owners. A connected owner has numbers that they're tracking. They have a gauge on income versus expense. They have a gauge on what does it cost me to acquire a customer relative to how much do I get from that fulfillment. And those are business numbers that it doesn't necessarily have to affect, the patient philosophy or anything like that, but they have these running totals. They're connected to that. And so when somebody comes who is disconnected from their practice, they don't have a clue, right? And I'm going to just highlight a group of people. The multi practice owners are typically some of the hardest because you've got so many numbers and there's so many practices that often you're not tracking enough, and one practice is holding up the other three, four, five, right? Or one or two of those. And this is where it starts to get disconnected because maybe you bought the philosophy of like, oh, I've got to be a CEO and get out of this thing. Well, the idea is like, well, you better be connected with all the numbers that runs that ship then. But even stripping it back to the single practice, we might have a couple of associates. Do you know what the associates are running? Is there a difference between the PVA of both of the associates? Do you know what the conversion percentage of associate A versus B is? Do you know how that affects CAC, with the entire practice? Like, do you have these numbers? Are you connected to the performance? And not even from just like a business standpoint, it's just like, do you know this? Are you invested in those things? And I feel like that's a cool thing. Obviously, there's a lot more to it. Leadership is a big thing. We were talking about this briefly before, but like you've got to have a leadership component. I'll let you guys kind of speak about that. But from my side of things, if they're going to engage us, a connected owner presents those numbers. They don't talk about cost per lead as much as they'll talk about CAC because they've got to factor in everything else that goes in, not just the little paid acquisition channel, right? Like you're presenting a full story of that conveyor belt that we spoke about earlier. You know that system, and so you can speak to that system as opposed to like, oh, so and so
Yeah,
handles that, and I
yeah.
don't really know.
Before you jump in, Nath, I'll add one little more frank detail. If there's a CA on the call with the owner, there it's not going to be a good call.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's an
Yeah,
appearance of connectedness. As soon as
yeah,
we
and
see
that's
that,
not
it's a red
not
flag.
a shot at CAs.
I and
That's more
oh
so. It's
man,
like you don't even want to be on this
bro.
call, and you have
Yeah,
given us the respect to at least show up to this one, but then you're going to disappear, and it.
yeah,
Yeah, I think we spoke about it last week, maybe it was the week before, but it's like if you as the owner are not in charge, what do you expect? Like it's never going to work. It's probably why you've had 15 agencies and done 17 different coaching calls. The miracle retention course isn't going to be a miracle. It's until you like start getting connected, knowing the numbers. And yes, it sounds crap having to talk about CAC and lifetime value and stuff in a healthcare industry. But at the end of the day, if you're listening to this podcast, it's because there's a money issue in your business, or you're at least aware of it, or you don't want to go down that road. So numbers are a thing that you just have to be aware of. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to make every single decision based on that. You just need to know them. You need to be across your business. Nath, for yourself, maybe if you could give maybe a little bit more context for a Kairos. Obviously, Aaron's just sort of given the perception of what it's like interacting. Have you ever felt like someone who's not in control? Have you worked for someone who's not in control? Like what, like, or who's not connected to their business? Like, what does it feel like internally?
I mean, I think I've had times in my own career, which I think is always a reflection where I've been disconnected. I've definitely worked for some people that do, right? And I mean, one of the things you see in the practices where they become disconnected is these little like groups forming, right? There's like one CA and one Chiro that are like chummy chummy, and they become almost like little cancers within the business because everyone's feeling this lack and they're feeling like they're getting screwed over. So they're trying to undercut each other. And they don't, usually the owner doesn't feel like they can be, like they can't rely on their staff, the staff can't rely on them. And often that's from an inability to lead or, you know, just accept that you've made bad hires. You know, sometimes it's not the person, it's just the wrong situation. I think one of the clearest signs for me when I am mentoring and guiding people, and particularly with the one-on-one coaching I do these days, the people I work with are ones that are usually owners that have had good practices, but they've gotten to a point, even kind of like having people on maintenance where they've just sort of parked themselves and they're just looking for a bit of an energetic kick up. They don't want to get out of practice. They're feeling a bit flat within it. And they want that bit of boost, energy, guidance to be like, how do I get back to enjoying it, right? Because they're feeling a little bit of like, I think they're connected, but they feel disconnected from the process. Whereas the ones that are truly disconnected don't want to know the process. Like you said, they want to outsource all the training. They don't have an onboarding system. They're, you know, everything is just like give it away, delegate, delegate, delegate. And usually under the pretense that they are the, you know, CEO of their practice. But I think we talked about this, but I think like true CEOs know everything that's going on within their business, right? Now, obviously in a Fortune 500, there's the CEO and there's a bunch of levels that all feed up. But the CEO has all the information fed to them so they can make the best decisions. Where it seems that the chiropractic CEO wants to be like the person standing on stage yelling and roaring, but has no clue what's actually happening in their practice, right? I almost remember, and I know that I do coaching, we are doing coaching, but I remember sitting down years ago with a mortgage broker. And he said, we're talking about, you know, getting set up for buying houses and stuff like this. And I don't know how it came up. He was talking about coaches. Actually, I don't know how it came up because we were in a B&I group and there was a bunch of coaches. You know, there was the health coach, the business coach, all that sort of stuff. And he's like, I'm going to give you a hot tip.
What's BNI? Can you tell me?
Business Networking International. They're pre-organized groups you pay into to become like the chiropractor for that group. And the whole soul is you work together to find referrals for each other's businesses. It can be a great way to build community, especially when you first get to a place. A lot of people can just do it organically. I've done both. I used to be a president of a chapter because I don't mind standing up and yelling in front of people and also holding people accountable. But the statement that he said to me, and I'll never forget it. He's like, listen, I know all the books for all the coaches. The only coaches making money are the coaches coaching the coaches, right? And so what we see in chiropractic is there's been a bit of a wave of coaches coming in. They're showing these CEO lifestyles, but those have nothing to do with being in practice. Those are about not being in a practice and telling you how to be in practice. And then all the crew taking their advice are having a terrible time. And when they go to the mortgage broker's like, where's all your money? You can't buy a house. And so like, it's like I said, it's just so disconnected. And I still think the core crux of it is, and I said this at the start and I'll say it again for those like that weren't sitting down when they were listening before. If you like, I love what we do. And I don't want to say that like I love chiropractic and all those things. I love taking care of people. I love my practice. I love my brand of chiropractic. My philosophy is about helping people and having fun. It's irrelevant of who I help. That is the core premise of it. Have I felt at times in my career like I didn't enjoy it anymore? Yes. And that's because I was disconnected. When you're connected, you want to be in practice. You love it. Now, you might want to be in practice less so you can have more time with your family, but you don't want to be out of practice, or you don't want to be out of practice forever. It seems that the whole coaching model now is to get you out of your practice. And if you actually wanted to be of service, like you yell and claim across social media, you know, you love helping people, I would die for this industry, and yet your whole goal is not to be in practice, you are a joke. Like, that is the most incongruent, like, lack of integrity, and usually it's the people who are shouting about how much integrity they have online that I don't trust anyway. But like, it's complete bullshit. And I can think of several people right now that I would like put in this category where it's just like you shout all these big things online. You're the director, you're the CEO of fuck all, mate. Like it just an absolute, like you don't even like your practice because you don't want to be in it. So like that's so disconnected from like the whole purpose. Like, and I think the crux of everything about being connected to practice is you would want to be in your practice. Like, I can say, and I mean this truthfully, if I won the lotto, I would still be adjusting people. Would I be taking more time off? Would I be like not in as regularly? Hell yeah. That's true, because I'm going to go have some lived experience with my family. But would I ever stop taking care of people? No, because I love doing it. And so they're connected to it. So I think the crux of everything I'm trying to say in this, who knows how long rant, is that if you are disconnected, you don't want to do it. And I think that stems from so many different angles. But if you don't want to do this, then trying to be the CEO of a practice where nobody wants to do it is not going to work.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I have you watched the movie Air about how Nike signed Michael Jordan? Yeah, good movie.
Great
Watched it
movie.
again the other day. So good. Anyway, I think when you just said like the whole hierarchy of the CEO and stuff, I actually think the confusion or the problem that we have is that people are trying to be on the board. They're not trying to be the CEO. They want to be that far disconnected that they just show up once a year for a meeting. Because in that movie, the CEO of Nike, Phil, is literally in the weeds on a Sunday night with his basketball crew trying to drum up a thing to sign Michael Jordan. It's like, that's what a CEO is. That's basketball. That was their smallest division. He's got running, soccer, like he's got all these other friggin' arms that don't even show in the movie. But it's like, he's still there making these decisions, getting stuck in. And then he's like, F it, I'll deal with the board later. And the board are the ones that have no idea what's going on. They're the ones sitting there on their ass doing nothing. So maybe we've just taken a step too far and we think, CEO, whatever, you want to be a whatever. It's like, are you being a CEO who actually operates and knows what's going on? Or are you sitting in the boardroom making crappy decisions based on third-party knowledge and only making decisions based on, I don't even know what?
They want to be the angel investor in their own practice.
Yeah.
Like where you put money in, you don't make decisions, and you want to hopefully just get money out without being involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, and look, here's there's a legitimate risk here. And this is, no one's telling you what the risk is. The risk is anybody who's better than you in practice will not stay. So you get a social media manager, she ain't staying. You get a CEO that's better than you, she can handle the front desk, someone else offers to pay more money, she ain't staying. You get an associate that's doing more, why would they stay? It skews in your favor, well, supposedly. Then that's the perception, so they leave. So everybody that you make better, not to say that you shouldn't make people better, but if they get this idea that I've got it, I'm the one who's in control, as soon as somebody shows me more dollars, I'm out.
Well, why would they stay?
Going
They're not
somewhere.
inspired by you.
Like, so why would they stay, bro? It's a small business. Like, you could take that skill set over to blooming Sabri Subi. A CA could go, hey, I ran social media for 3 clinics. Go to Sabri Subi and he go pay you 150K for the exact same skill set. So why are you delegating your social media and your advertising, you're outsourcing that to a CA who's getting paid what, 50, 55, 60, I don't know, but then can legitimately upskill. And if they don't love chiropractic and they don't love where they are and they know that they've legitimately acquired a skill, they're gone. And it's like that risk is inside every one of those roles because you're playing small business. So like, again, man, it's like taking Blim and Hormozy strategies and taking Tucky Moores and all these big dudes and then pulling it down into small business. They're not playing the same game. They can actually afford to pay their people a lot of money. And those people, a lot of them, they don't want to run their own businesses. But as soon as you go, hey, CA, run my social, run my ads, do that, be this person, run the practice, they can go somewhere else for a lot more
I want to make
cash.
this really important point that you just made, because I had the pleasure of actually meeting Tucky Moore back in 2014. I flew to Sydney with Lawrence Tam, who's mates with Tucky, and he presented live to us like he does, barefoot, great, and I've followed him ever since. If anyone follows Tucky, and I highly recommend you do. I love some of his stuff. Doesn't necessarily relate in. His whole thing that he's just promoted is that he has leaned his practice. Like, he went from like 30 closers to a team of 5, I think it is, or 6, is doing more revenue
100%.
with less people because he got bloated, and now doesn't even do sales calls. He just does a sales document because he's like, I'm already like oversubscribed and don't have to care, because he delivers on what he says he's going to do, provides great experience for people, and people refer in, which is literally how most chiropractic practices are developed.
Yeah.
Like, I put a post, it's in Trials, which is why people probably haven't seen it at the moment, because I saw a business, which is a well-known business, and I almost worked with them, I'll be thinking, with you, the crew that teach you how to do your marketing, which is a very intelligent, basically, development out of Hormozy's book about learning how to do it. but their whole model was like, don't rely on referrals. I was like, wait a minute, isn't the whole point of developing yourself so much that you should be relying on, like, you don't, not relying, you just get all the referrals? Like, what terrible advice. And I feel like this is the advice that everyone's got lost on, because, you know, the coaches are running these like high volume marketing mills that you then lose all the internal, and people don't stay anyway. So you have to constantly pump them back up, which we've talked about previously on stability. But if you deliver a great service, the wedge also splits and opens because you no longer have to pay a lot of marketing. You think you've got constant referrals. You don't have to do these things because you built the experience. Why wouldn't we want that to be our thing? And that's literally where Tucky's got. This guy's doing, I think it's 8 figures with a team of like, and his whole brag is he's like, they're like, oh, do you need clothes? He's like, no, I just fired 30 of them. Didn't need them. And I remember being on a call and he was like, we were just so bloated.
Yeah. 100%, man. 100%. I know exactly I followed Tucky for years as well. This also kind of just brings up a big point, and I think this is the idea of the wedge. As if the wedge grows, right? So your profit margin grows, that also applies over to your lifestyle, right? So you should get the same wedge in your lifestyle. You should get that same wedge in your operations because your efficiency should improve over time, right? So the wedge should happen everywhere, and it's when it doesn't. It's when effort or money increases, and you know the energy it takes, or the margin goes in the same trajectory. It's like when you don't get the wedge, it hurts you in all of the areas. So if profit goes up, but it requires all of your lifestyle, you're not happy. Cool, you
most of them aren't
earned
getting the
more.
wedge, mate. They're getting the
man.
X.
But
They're like,
little
don't
Johnny
get the wedge, you
hurts.
get the X, and it crosses over, and now you're doing more work for less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that went off the run sheet. Thanks, fellas. So to try and tie this back together, basically what we're saying is lean doesn't mean staying small. That is not what we're talking. It is not giving up on your ambition and not getting the Porsche. It's meaning get the foundation right of getting a wedge so that when you do go hard, you are leveraged. Like you're actually exponentially better off, because it's like, all right, I'm going to start going to the gym, and then you just start eating more at the same time. Like, what's the point? Why'd you do that? And as Aaron said, the ongoing effect of the wedge then is, yes, financially within the business, you've got a profit margin, but then that's also the profit margin that funds your lifestyle. So then you also start to get a wedge in your lifestyle where you actually can enjoy yourself. And you might find that you don't want to get out of the practice so much because you love being there. That's the whole point of being lean. The ways to do it, start off with working out what your SVM is, where you are right now, plotting the course to cut back on anything. A good exercise would be to sit down, go through P&L and just see where all the dumb stuff is. You know, Nathan, you found $500 a month in subscriptions and other stuff. Cut it out. That's $500 you can spend on your family instead. It's working out, okay, well, what's the model? Because to be a good owner, you need to understand your metrics. And understanding your metrics means you know what your model is, which is how do you look after someone before they even come in to right until the last handshake or email or whatever. How do you actually look after someone so that it can be systematized, which is just a repeatable process, so that then if you wanted to grow and you wanted to add an associate or you just wanted to market, you know what you're marketing and growing, and you know what kind of associate you're looking for. You know the associate knows what you do as well, so that you can actually hire, grow, scale if you want to, with a margin, so that the extra effort that you put in, you actually get a return on. Because when you're burning out and you're hating your life, it's more than likely because you don't have that wedge. You're working harder for the same thing. More stress, higher revenue, no difference, not really worth the effort. That's my close. Nath, you got anything? Look like you got.
No, mate. I think you hit it all on the head there. I have ranted and raved and gone as deep as I need to be. Told a bunch of people
hard
they're a
work.
bitch.
Spoke about powerlifting and jet skis. That one to go on the record. Sweet. Thanks again, fellas. We'll wrap it up there. See you next week.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. This needs the thumbnail image that is Jay Cutler on the jet ski. That's what.